just try your best and don't get too hung up on it. If it doesn't work out, that's okay.
How do you do? It's Mr. Moo. How you doing? One of the hardest problems that a game dev or anyone that is working on a project that requires them to work day in and day out is finding motivation to work consistently. I can't give any advice about how to make a popular game or a financially successful game because I've never done that before. But one thing that I really do feel like I'm qualified to talk about is living in the grind. There's a lot of things that I struggle with as a game dev, but finding motivation to work every day is not one of them. I have fewer than 100 subscribers as of today, so it's not like I have tons of adoring fans that are putting pressure on me to finish games. I've never made $1 off of any of my games, so it's not like I need to make games for a living. I have a full-time job, so any time that I devote to game dev has to come after a full day's work. And if one day I just decided I don't want to make games anymore, the only person in the world that would really care is me. And yet, last December, I released my first Steam game, Lumber Party, and I'm currently working on a game for 2 years, my passion project, Stolen Hearts, and I work on it 2 to 3 hours every single day. And I feel like I can keep going forever. In this video, I'm going to be giving you 5 tips that help me maintain my motivation and keep me working consistently. And these tips are not specific to game development at all. Actually, these are things that I've learned through my experiences playing sports, learning instruments, new languages, and honestly anything that has required me to work consistently. Number 1, focus on the process and not the outcome. Everyone making a video game wants to first finish that project, then have the whole world download it, and then make millions of dollars on it, including me. Those are outcome goals. Other examples of outcome goals are, I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to run a marathon. I want to learn how to play this song on guitar. And outcome goals can be extremely motivating for us. They give you that first jolt of motivation. The issue is that you'll never feel a sense of accomplishment if you just focus on outcome goals until you achieve that outcome. So let's say you're making a game. During the whole process, your happiness is 0, 0, 0%, 0%, and then 100% all the way at the end, right? When you complete the game. And that's also assuming that you achieve, getting all the downloads that you want, making all the money that you want. And so these goals can be both motivating, but in many more cases can also be the biggest danger to your motivation. For me, motivation is like a fire that's like burning inside of me. And it's initially sparked by some big dream I have, like to make the next big hit. And focusing on one of these outcome goals is kind of like dropping a big log on that fire. And the fire might put up a good fight for a while, but eventually it's just gonna go out. And that's because the fire is not there long enough, it's not strong enough to actually engulf this log in flame. Motivation is like that fire. It needs to be constantly fed and kept alive in order to survive long enough to achieve your outcome goals. You might incentivize yourself with smaller outcome goals, like milestones, such as I want to finish all of the art by the end of the month, or I want to add all the sound effects by the end of the month. And these types of outcome goals can actually be very good. They can help keep you organized and focused on the specifics of what you need to do. But the issue is, more often than not, you're not going to hit your milestones because of any number of reasons, and mostly because things happen that you can't anticipate. And when you don't hit these milestones, that can be very demoralizing. And it's going to make you question whether or not you're going to be able to complete this journey that you have set out for yourself, which you can. All this to say, that's why you should be focused on your process goals. Process goals have nothing to do with the results that you see from your work, but rather what tasks you completed that were 100% in your control. Spend 1 hour a day on your game. Work on your game 4 times a week. These are examples of process goals. It doesn't matter if during that time you fix all the bugs in your game or you fix none of them. What matters is that you spent the time working on your game. If you trust the process and keep your process goal as your main focus, you're going to feel accomplished much more often. You're in complete control of your process goals, but you're not in control of your outcome goals in the same way. The best process goal that I can recommend you is just win today. Doesn't matter what you did yesterday, it's not going to matter what you do tomorrow. As long as you win today, you should be happy. If every day you focus on your process goal of working on your game today, I promise eventually you'll start achieving your outcome goals. That's what the grind is all about. It's about living in the process. I've achieved a few outcome goals for game development, like Lumber Party just passed 1,000 downloads, so that's pretty cool. But I have way more outcome goals that I have not accomplished. Yet I complete my process goal almost every day, and every day I feel like I've achieved something. And that's more fuel for the fire. Number 2, make game development part of your routine. Routine has complete control over your life, whether you realize it or not. If you're like me, you have your phone out for about 20 minutes at least, right before bed, right before you go to sleep. And there's nothing that I'm doing on my phone that I really care about, and I'm not really enjoying myself. So why do I do it? I do it because it's become a part of my pre-sleep ritual, right? It's part of my routine. You do things every day, probably without realizing, just because you do it every day. That's the reason. Well, the opposite is also true. There are things that you don't do or even have a hard time getting yourself to do because it's not a part of your routine. For the first 24 years of my life, I never made my bed. It takes 30 seconds to set up the blanket and the pillows, but I just never did it. And when I started doing it, for the first month, my mind actively resisted making the bed. Like, I just didn't want to do it. It was a nuisance to me. But then something changed, and I've been making my bed every day for the past 2 years. So what is it that changed? It became part of my routine. I just do it without even thinking now. It's not any easier. It doesn't take any less time than it did. The only difference is that I just have done it every day, and now I do it. I've done the same thing for my project. I work on my game every day at the same time, scheduled. Making something part of your routine is kind of like wearing a new pair of shoes. They're really tight and uncomfortable first, but eventually you're going to notice it less and less until it becomes a comfortable pair of shoes and it fits your foot very nicely. Also, pro tip, if you don't make your bed every day, I suggest you start doing it because it's a great way to get an easy win right at the beginning of the day. Staying motivated is being able to use inertia for you rather than work against you. Inertia is Newton's first law of physics that says that objects at rest will stay at rest and objects in motion will stay in motion. It's much easier to do something that requires a lot of effort and focus if you've done it yesterday. It's routine that keeps you in motion. This is why everyone hates Mondays, because the weekends break up your routine, and then on Monday you have to apply force to push yourself back into motion for the week. Number 3, do something that will engage your attention for 10 minutes that you enjoy, just before you work on your game. More days than not, I know I have to work on my game. I want to work on my game, but there is something that is just holding me back. It's almost like I physically cannot get myself to work on it. I can't put myself in that chair, open up Unity, and start working. Before, I was talking about long-term inertia, having a strict schedule that you work on your game daily to keep yourself in motion. This is short-term inertia, getting yourself in motion for the day. And the thing is, you probably already know that once you're 15 minutes into work, that it's going to be fine. You're going to work for the rest of the hour or however long, and you're not even going to notice, and it's not going to be hard. But there's something that's almost physically holding you back, preventing you from actually starting that work. So this is how I combat that. First, I tell myself that tomorrow and every day for the rest of my life, I'm going to be happy that I spent this hour working. The only time in my entire life that I'm not going to be happy that I'm working on it is the next hour, or probably the next 15 minutes. Then I do something that engages me either mentally or physically for about 10 minutes. This should be something that you really enjoy, because the idea is that you want to easily set yourself into motion with the least amount of friction. So if it's something that you enjoy, you're not going to dread it the way that you're dreading working on your game. It should also require a good amount of focus, right? Because this is something that's going to be warming up your mental juices. So it shouldn't be like an episode of TV, because that is just going to keep you on that couch. And it should be the same thing every day, because you want to associate doing that activity to start working on your game. But there's a caveat. If this activity starts becoming boring to you, or you start dreading it the way that you're dreading working on your game, pick a new activity, because it's more important that you're doing something that's going to be easy to transition. So for me right now, I play a game or two of chess. But previously it's been 10 minutes of guitar or a workout or something like that. Just a quick activity that's going to put you in that short-term motion to win the day. Number 4, when you don't know what step to take, any step will do. Let's say you just started a project and it's going to be a huge undertaking like many games are, and you know that it's going to require months or even years of work, and you don't even know where to start. Or maybe you've been working on a project for a long time and you get stuck on a particular bug, or you don't want to work on something specific and it's just looming over your head and it's blocking you from continuing the path that you're on. This type of thing has been something that has really pumped the brakes on my productivity, because I have the energy to work on my game, but the circumstances of not knowing what to do is causing me to not work on my game. So here's the tip. Do anything that you know needs to be done. Doesn't matter what it is. So let's say you have an outcome goal to finish the boss battle of your game by the end of the week. For 2 days you're making progress, and then on day 3 the boss just flies away for seemingly no reason and you don't understand why. And on day 3 you can't figure it out, on day 4 you can't figure it out, day 5 you can't figure it out, and then on day 6 you don't want to waste another day trying to figure out what this bug is, but it's preventing you from completing your outcome goal of finishing the boss battle by the end of the week. And then you're going to be disappointed in yourself for not being able to complete that outcome goal. So this is just another example of why an outcome goal can hinder your motivation. So what I'll do is I'll completely pivot and work on something completely different, like the music or the art or something like that. I'll know that at some point I need to wrap back and take care of this, but it doesn't need to be right now. What is more important is to continue moving forward, making progress and working on your game. Because if this bug is going to prevent you from winning today, then it's better to work on something else than come back to it with fresh eyes and more motivation, right? More fuel for that fire. The same principle goes if I'm trying to do something that I've never done before, right? Let's say I want to make the next great battle royale and I don't even know where to start. Well, just think about anything that would have to be done and then do that. You need a storm? Do the storm first. You're going to need a pause menu. You're going to need some way to adjust the volume. And once you do one thing, it's going to become more clear about what you need to do for the next. Don't be afraid to take a wrong step. Be afraid of not taking any step at all. And number 5, being consistently motivated takes practice. Maintaining motivation is a learned skill. It's not something that you just have, and it's something that you can learn to do no matter how motivated you feel at the moment. I haven't always been as consistent and motivated and determined as I am right now. It took time for me to learn and understand the things that I know now and be able to actually execute them. And it took practice, and I can make a whole video series about how to practice, and maybe I will. It's going to take time for you to ramp up if you're not already doing these types of things. Now I work about 3 hours a day on game dev, but I didn't start like that. When I started, I was probably working 2 hours a week, and I got better and better at it by increasing my time that I put into it in my routine and trusting the process and using the energy from other hobbies and direct it towards game dev. Always moving forward and learning to accept and love the grind. So those are 5 tips about how I stay motivated and consistent. How do you stay motivated? Let me know in the comments. If you like this video, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, send me a letter, something else. That's all I got for you today.